Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today, I will be breaking down the most recent monthly report. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for the support, it is truly appreciated. And if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Now this is going to be quite a big report, so do get yourselves a drink, some snacks, settle in, and let's kick off with the animation team. They worked on facial animations for a new character set, while also progressing with their ongoing work on boids, which refers to animals flying in flocks or swarms, like birds or the fish in the various bodies of water, which we saw them working on quite recently. Next up, we have the character and weapon features team, who began extending item wear to weaponry, which means as a weapon is used, ages, or is kept in poor condition, it will become increasingly worn. For example, if a weapon is used while dirty, it will accumulate wear faster, and as that weapon becomes worn, it will become less reliable and may overheat faster and start misfiring, which can cause minor or major jamming, requiring the user to spend time fixing the malfunction. Now this feature I feel that people will either love or hate, and for me, I love this approach. Everything CIG creates, be that a ship, a weapon, an inanimate object, it is done so with such care and attention, as well as ingraining each item into the lore of the verse, which means that as we travel around and find all these various things, start collecting them, we will begin to grow attached to many of them. And as they age and gather wear over time, then we will want to take care of them. Not to mention the inconvenience of an item breaking at a critical time when you need it most, which if we had cleaned it, will have worked fine. I really look forward to seeing how the system changes how we treat our items in-game, and when it comes to looting as well, finding those gems that are in pristine condition will feel very rewarding, also reflecting the price and the sale price. So as I say, definitely going to be a love-hate relationship with the community this one, but I'm looking forward to seeing it in-game. Anyway, the team also looked into a minor rework of the inventory system, with the team saying that the current inventory screen is great for managing loadout and inventory storage, but we have been looking at options for speeding up looting while in combat. And so as part of this, they experimented with new UI that remains in a first-person view, allowing players to assess combat-related items and quickly loot or exchange them, like medpens, ammo, grenades, and weapons. So this sounds like a good idea, as looting in the verse needs to be intuitive and streamlined, and I don't think they're removing the option to go into third person and do it at your leisure. I think this is more quick information remaining in first person, allowing you to compare items pretty quickly on the fly and just chop and change what you need when things get a little heated. So hopefully it helps in a combat situation and feels good. Now for the gameplay features team, they began focusing on the vehicle tractor beams, with relevant vehicles being set up to support the feature, with the upcoming Argo SRV towing its first ship. So this does sound to me like the vehicle tractor beams may be coming along for Alpha 320. We will need confirmation on this officially. This is just me speculating on what we read. It certainly looks plausible, but it is very exciting to finally see these ships getting their tractor beam functionality that will definitely help with hauling, loading, unloading boxes, and of course in the Argo SRV's case, being able to tow ships around the place, which is going to be very important now that persistent entity streaming is in. Now the resource network progressed as well. This is the sort of ship engineering system where all the components talk to each other and provide the resources they need. It says that the team are pleased with its current state, and they then moved on to supporting related features like engineering and life support. So this sounds like it's a system that will certainly take a bit of time to get right, especially as each component will have various states, damaged states, malfunctions, and so on. So a lot to do here, but they are clearly cracking on with it and making some good progress. Now moving on to the mission features team, they were redirected to cargo and pyro based missions, with them currently developing cargo hauling and ship piracy missions that leverage the new cargo grid and freight elevator features. Really cannot wait to see what plans CIG have for building out the cargo system. Be interested to see what this new cargo grid is, but there are a lot of cargo related elements in the works right now, and this system or career path that I know many of you, including myself, have been waiting for a long time is looking like it's making some pretty significant progress. Whether that's 320 or later, it could be a bit of both. We'll have to wait and see. Now, development of a new cargo and escort-focused dynamic event began. This is referred to as Blockade Runner, and it says will replace the Ninetales Lockdown dynamic event, keeping that event's strengths but removing its weaknesses. Now, if I remember correctly, Ninetales Lockdown was originally pitched as a blockade style event, where the Ninetales lock down, I think, a planetary location, and players need to find a way to either fight through or get around their defenses, delivering resources to those in need as well as fighting the Ninetales. But I assume that due to the lack of certain features, it was held off until it's able to expand. It will be very exciting to see this event reach its intended scope and potential, and hopefully by then we will be able to earn rep with the Ninetales as well. Now, work was completed on the ship cover-up mission, which is a salvaging mission where players need to scrape the hull of a ship that the Ninetales used in an illegal mission before security arrive. They were also tasked with setting up the new player experience system, which was released for Alpha 3.19, I think, at Area 18, into a modular mission that can be ran at any location. Now, this is obviously good news. Having this new player system at one location is better than none, of course, it's great, but if a new player starts at any other location other than Area 18, they won't see that. So it's very important to get this whole new player system set up everywhere where players can load in on. Now, for combat missions, most quantum-capable ships were added to the pool that missions can spawn from, and as part of this work, the game's ships were divided into difficulty bands derived from data gathered after pitting every ship against each other 1,000 times. Now, this, I'm assuming, will mean that ships that we fight as part of missions, NPCs this is, will soon be capable of actually quantum traveling away, meaning that we will need to give chase. Plus, having all of the missions more properly balanced, because as new flight combat behaviors come in, certain ships designed for combat will become much harder to take on, so missions and rewards need to scale appropriately. It is going to be exciting to watch the AI begin to perform as intended, alongside these new behaviors as well, making them much more challenging and capable of moving around the berth. Now, a technical design document was completed for the system that governs player reputations with the in-game orgs, and this relates to things players can do outside of missions, such as killing a rival gang NPC. Now, this is great news, as it means we won't need to just actively take on missions for the various orgs to gain rep. Doing things like mining or hauling will begin to have indirect influence on our reputation for each group, be that positive or in some cases negative. And also hats off to the mission team for immediately getting on with updating and improving the reputation system, as they have only just taken over responsibility of it. Now, gameplay features also made improvements to the Defend Korea missions, including splitting trespasser tracking between the station's interior and exterior to help players better understand where to search, with the team saying, "We are also prototyping a means to take the turrets temporarily offline and do a momentary ping on intruders, which may or may not be used." Work continued on the data heist, retrieval, consignment, and ship escort missions, alongside the new ship trespass feature. And finally, the ledge grab feature was enabled in the persistent universe, which will allow players to grab onto ledges while in midair, so as you're falling, which will improve climbing and allow players to reach ship entrances that were previously out of reach. Now, these kinds of traversal updates, that include many more that are working in the background, are very much needed, allowing us to explore areas more freely, and instead of them all coming in one go, it looks like they're slowly rolling them out as each one becomes available. Now, for the character art team, they continued to work on the Dusters and Headhunters gangs, creating new outfits for the Dusters and polishing existing Headhunter items, and they also began to explore a potential new Headhunter gang member as well. And for the ship art team, the Tumbril Storm is nearing the end of its LOD0 stage, with some areas approaching final content. Materials were also polished, internal damage built, and most LODs created. Now the team are currently undertaking customization work and will then move on to UV2 projections in July. Really looking forward to the Storm. Should be a fun new addition. More for Tank Royale than the verse right now, as there is not really much to do with tanks in the game other than battle royales ourselves, but hopefully we will start to see more reason for tanks in the verse coming along. Now, the Apoa Santo Kiai is currently awaiting its second Greybox Gate review, which it failed the first time round due to a lack of a plan for its dashboard, which now they have the bulk of the art for it generated for this dashboard, and when or if it makes it past this second review gate, it will then be in the LOD 0 stage. The cockpit received a polish pass before the team moved on to the rest of the ship, with the team now working with the narrative team to bring in some translated Xi'an language that will appear on the ship's UI and character inner thought. It will be quite nice to see many of the alien ships sort of hinting towards or highlighting the fact that they are from another alien race. I think that'll be quite a unique touch to them, making it feel like you are in an alien ship and not just a human ship. Now, for the engine team, the core engine team finished integrating the latest changes into the main development branch, which took a lot of effort, they say, but this has many major rewrites that were made over the last few months. Also, experiments were done on a more cooperative threading model to execute physics code, which should deliver general performance improvements. The Star Build, P4K version 2.0, and MEM replay systems received various improvements, and new features in prep for them rolled out to the other teams, plus Core Engine worked with the physics team to provide tech support for the MISC Hull C. Talking of the physics team, they supported game teams with various bug fixes, progressed with cantilever beams for the Maelstrom editor, and investigated solver improvements for driven ragdolls. So not entirely sure what any of that means, but I do know that the Maelstrom editor is referring to the physical damage and breakability system. So for cantilever beams, this could be referring to something where a cantilever will break, maybe as the ships crash into a planet, for example, giving a more realistic breakup, as that is definitely what this Maelstrom system is going to be used for. Now, the Entity Tech team transferred to the Core Engine team, with the team saying, while their focus is still on everything related to server meshing, bringing the team over brings the knowledge and ownership of the entity system together, which should allow for more efficient communication. So hopefully this will help to streamline any potential issues, getting them all fixed much quicker. Now, for the Arena Commander features team, they spent a lot of the time getting Arena Commander's new features ready for Alpha 3.20, with them completing the new competitive scoring and team balance systems. For Tank Royale, the Magda location failed its go-no-go review due to underwhelming visuals and gameplay, they say, so instead, design worked on 2 replacement locations to provide greater variety and more visual interest, which include Daymar and Maya, Maya being Leia's second planet where the Good Doctor map is set. So this is pretty interesting. Instead of getting the Magda map, we are getting 2 new ones for Tank Royale, which includes Daymar, which is a location that I really love, hopefully using some of the canyons there, as well as the location of the Good Doctor map, which has a lot of trees, and it looks quite pretty as well, so that should be an interesting option. And then finally, the team concluded work on 3 new experimental modes that feature the new flight system being master modes, which are Free Flight, Duel, and Endless Vanduul Swarm. So great to see them already testing master modes with the Evocati, and hopefully it won't be too long until we get to test the master modes ourselves, and the new atmospheric flight and control surface changes too, as this system was just opened up for wider game testing. Now, moving on to the Planet Tech team, they are wrapping up their latest tools and working on the new water system, where water ripples can now be simulated across region borders, plus further reworks to render code integrations with planetary atmospheric passes made the process smoother, as well as quantum obstacles for generic shapes becoming physicalized and passed to the engine team for integration. The graphics team spent time fixing bugs, improving the render thread, and they developed the upcoming temporal upscaling system. And for global illumination, it says a ray tracing prototype is now in progress, plus work on screen space probes began, with screen space shadows now more consistent and canvas decal streaming issues resolved. So very much looking forward to seeing what Star Citizen looks like with ray tracing. Hopefully they can find a way to make it super performant friendly, as I think my 3080 will certainly struggle with that level of beauty. Now, the Gen 12 renderer and the Vulkan API received various bug fixes that impacted rendering and streaming performance, and the GPU resource lifetime was restructured. Alongside the UI Tech and Squadron 42 teams, graphics improved the performance and visual quality of the area map, with the interior and FPS minimaps now using the render layers feature, which can be applied to CGA joints, skin, and CGF attachments. So great to see that they're working on these new map features. although I do hope that this FPS map, or this mini-map, is only on screen if you're wearing appropriate attire, like a helmet that is giving you the option to have that, as it does kind of suck you out of the world. A bit like having a GPS, you don't really pay attention to where you're going or what you're doing, because you're focused too much on what is on the minimap. So I do hope that that is somewhat optional, just based on your equipment. Now, the VFX team enabled Dataforge to support particle library groups in prep for the upcoming changes to weapon effects setup. An entity-wide burn state can now be applied that uses dirt parameters and object temperature to determine damage and glow, with glow using a specific shader from permanent effects for game-wide consistency. Now, there has been a lot of work into this whole fire hazard and propagation system. Really looking forward to seeing how it all works, seeing how we tackle it on board of our ships, and hopefully we get to see a bit of this at CitizenCon, as it does sound like they're getting closer to finishing off the work for it, but it has been a long ongoing task. And finally, for the team, lightning was improved, with lightning cascades now timeable with a new controller, and ship shields now triggering when struck by lightning, which I bet looks pretty amazing to see. Seeing a ship get struck by lightning and then their shields flaring up, that is going to be very cool. Now, moving on to the in-game branding team in Montreal, they worked with the EU location's 2 teams on navigational signage for New Babbage, and began building various artwork assets for an upcoming event. They also progressed with Pyro, including the final touch-ups on navigational signage for Ruin Station, although I bet most of their signs lead you to death. And finally, for the team, they began work on the underground facilities, which involved creating different mock-ups of the commercial lobbies. Really hope we get to check in on these underground facilities again one day soon, as they were really storming ahead through development, and as it's been quite a while since we last checked in, I bet they've made a lot of progress. Now, for the Interactables team, they explored new ideas for props that haven't been seen in the verse before, plus created new flair items for subscribers. For the Live Tools team in Montreal, they entered the analytics phase of the usability research done last month, and they say when complete, the team will establish an action plan that will determine their next priorities in improving the usability of the Hex Network's Operation Center, with the team saying, "This month also marked a great milestone, with the team shipping one of the key features that will provide more support to persistent entity streaming tech. This new versatile tool will allow the users to have an overview of the different entities in-game." So not entirely sure what all of this means. Maybe it highlights all of the persisting items in the area to give a better understanding of maybe problem areas that might need cleaning up. I'm not sure, but any continuous tech and improvements to this foundational core tech is certainly going to be a benefit. Anyway, for the EU locations team, they progressed with closing out rooms for Rundown Station, with the team saying the station has had some great TLC, or tender loving care, and we hope players will enjoy exploring these new areas. Now, I'm assuming that this is referring to a new station archetype, similar to the R&R stations found in Stanton, but much more run down, less operational, offering maybe less amenities, and found sparsely throughout the Pyro system. The team also completed tasks for an upcoming event before beginning various new projects. The Sandbox team closed out Pyro's outposts and moved on to planetary distribution work. I presume this means they are now distributing these outposts around the planets and moons of Pyro. Development of the underground facilities continued, with the team exploring new areas and further expanding these already considerable locations. Again, plenty of work continuing on with these underground facilities, and they are going to be very impressive because the sheer scale of them in comparison to the UGFs we have now is huge. Finally, the Organics team continued cloud development for planets and worked on new and interesting flora that players will find in Pyro. Now, we have already seen some interesting flowers and flora plant life for Pyro, like a flower that harnesses the star's flares to help it grow, and another that is actually quite a prized item throughout the Empire. So I am certain that there will be missions one day, maybe not even missions, maybe just off of our own back, requiring players to head into the dangers of Pyro to gather these flowers, bringing them back, likely in protective cargo boxes of some kind, to sell them here in Stanton and eventually beyond, making a lot of money off of them. For the narrative team, they further developed and populated Pyro, and as a lawless system, they say it presents a lot of interesting opportunities for the team to explore how existing game systems may change and take on new nuance. Now this, I suppose, is something I've not really fully considered, but even just mining, salvaging, anything we can do in Stanton now will be drastically different in Pyro. I'm sure the process will remain the same, but how we go about it, how we plan for it, how we prepare for it, will be on a much larger and more dangerous scale. The narrative team also worked on further outlining mission content and providers, refining the unique food options that will be available at some of the remote space stations in Pyro, and detailing signage and graffiti that will be placed around various locations as well. They also continued their final push towards the release of Alpha 320, and this included naming and writing descriptions for numerous assets, reviewing new text for gameplay features, and further refining new mission content. Additionally, they made deeper dives into an alien species' lore as xenolinguistic development continued, and this involved listening to new audio samples and debating which style of speech fits best with the culture and lore. Now, I'm assuming this is referring to the Tavaran, as we have yet to see or hear their language. We already have a very well fleshed out Banu, Xi'an, and Vanduul language. Obviously, we don't get access to the Vanduul, with it being sort of hidden behind Squadron, but we don't know anything about the Tavaran language yet, so that's my guess. Now, for the online services team in Montreal, they completed a major refactor of the inventory system, and these changes, they say, won't be visible to the players, but will touch on every inventory type in the game, with the goal being to address some long-standing bugs and improve persistent entity streaming performance and stability. So very happy to hear that they are putting a lot of effort into the inventory system, as this has certainly seen a lot of issues since going live, especially once persistent entity streaming was enabled, so getting it stable is of great importance. The team also worked on server and engine side integration for the return of private lobbies in Arena Commander, which will be great for org practice. And finally, for the team, they fixed various bugs related to long-term persistence and login issues, which I know many people have been suffering from since the 3.18 release. So really hope that they can resolve all of these issues that are stopping people getting into the game, and they can finally get in and start playing again. Now, for the Systemic Services and Tools team, they began planning the required services refactor in support of server meshing, and I am fully expecting an in-depth talk about the server meshing progress, its current state, at CitizenCon this year. They also began code cleanup and worked through the tech debt for the diffusion architecture and general instance manager, and additionally the team supported the USPU team with bug fixes and integrations towards the MISC Hull C and cargo feature release. I also somewhat expect, but really just hope, to hear from Tony Zurovec again at this year's CitizenCon, talking about the quantum simulation, the economy, and other background systems that him and his team are working on, as well as maybe even Bounty Hunting version 2. Now, for the Tech Art and Animation team, they integrated their long-awaited changes to the DNA system, which enables new head assets and provides a pipeline that will open up new ways to author and customize new game content. They also begun a new initiative while they wait for further head art, which includes updating the Maya pipeline code base from Python 2.7 to 3.7 and then thoroughly testing it. And this, they say, was released to the user base in June, with the team currently working through the final bugs. And then finally, we have the visual effects team, who increased support for several locations across Pyro, including ruined stations interior and exterior, and various derelict settlements and outposts. Also, due to the modular nature of these locations, time was taken to ensure that the artists understood which file level to add effects to. And finally, the team also supported several new platforms on Orison, including falling and rustling leaves, water fountains, and more, plus several ships progressed throughout June as well. And if it is the visual effects team progressing with several ships, then these ships or vehicles must be straight to flyable or drivable, as visual effects are of course a downstream team who get their hands on things when they're closer to releasing. So there you have it, that was this month's monthly report. Lots of great stuff in the works for Pyro, as always being heavy focus. Also, the mission team is doing a ton of stuff there with new content that will definitely expand the variety of what we have available in the PU now. But with that said, if you do appreciate my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Also, come and hang out over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother. You are all more than welcome to come and hang out over there, chatting all about Star Citizen. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.